So it was 100 years ago in 1925, and John Scopes was a 24-year-old science teacher, high school science teacher and football coach in Dayton, Tennessee, and he had just finished his first year teaching, and he was about to head home, but a young woman caught his eye. He decided to stick around for a little bit more, so he was playing tennis one afternoon when a young boy ran up to him and told him that he was wanted at Doc Robinson's drugstore. Now, just a couple of months before, the state of Tennessee had passed the Butler Act, which had made it illegal to teach evolution, and basically was requiring that science teachers use the creation story, as the text for how the world came to be. And ever since that had passed, the ACLU, which was just 5 years old at the time, had been looking for someone who would be willing to challenge that, some teacher. And a group of Dayton businessmen were also looking for someone because they thought it would bring some business and some notoriety to their little town that was kind of down on its luck. So it was that this young man came to be at the center of this trial. It came to be known as, of course, the Scopes Monkey Trial, the trial of the century, and it really became a showdown between these two very big figures, William Jennings Bryan, who was a Christian fundamentalist who had run for president 3 times, who was representing the state of Tennessee, and then, of course, Clarence Darrow, who at the time was one of the most famous attorneys, who was representing Scopes and representing freedom of religion and science and all of that. And it was a showdown, and it was the very first trial in our nation's history that was broadcast. This radio station from Chicago came, and they took over the courtroom. They literally out in the streets, there were people selling souvenirs and doing tricks with monkeys. And John Scopes actually never spoke until the very end, after he was found guilty, fined $100, and then he made a brief speech in which he said he believed he had been convicted of an unjust law and he would spend his life opposing it. He didn't really get the chance to, though, because the state of Tennessee banned him from ever working there. So luckily, a group of scientists came together, asked him if he would like to go to University of Chicago, get a master's degree in geology, which is what he wanted to do. So they got the money together, and he went off and did that. And then when he was done, he moved to Venezuela, where he could get away from all of this, right? And it's an interesting story. It's been in the news a little bit more lately because this is the 100th year anniversary, right? It's the centennial. But in some ways, it feels like it could be yesterday or today, right? I mean, with all the attacks right now on science and all the attacks on the First Amendment, right, which guarantees not just what? Freedom of religion, but freedom from religion, right? Freedom from a small, narrow-minded group taking their faith and putting it all over the rest of us, which is exactly what is happening right now. We've got 15 states, 3 who have already passed it, requiring that the 10 Commandments be posted in every public schoolroom. And not just any 10 Commandments, mind you, but what? A 10 Commandments excerpted from Trump's Bible. And this is not a joke. This is actual truth, right? And then you have something as insane as the state of Oklahoma. The Supreme Court broke 4-4, right, with Coney Barrett abstaining. That close to having the citizens of the state of Oklahoma paying with public tax money for a Catholic school. So you're like, how can we be in this spot? But that trial also highlights something else. Not just like how the crazy kind of sticks around, but the power of public opinion. Because even though Scopes lost that trial, even though Darrow and all of them, that law, the Butler Act, was largely never enforced until 1967, when another teacher in Tennessee who had been teaching was kind of pushed out, and then it was finally overturned. But it wasn't enforced because even in the state of Tennessee, people were embarrassed by it, right? Which says something about the power of public opinion. Even when the courts, even when the world makes bad choices, people's voices really matter. And it also says something about the power, as we know, of public school teachers. Because all those teachers, science teachers, not just in Tennessee, but around the world, what did they do? They went back into the classroom and they just kept teaching science. They just did. And what are teachers doing right now? The schools are full of teachers. They got this diversity crud in front of them. They've got banning the books, and they're standing up in front of their classroom. What are they doing? They're offering a wide open welcome to their students over and over and over again. And the author of Hebrews would like for us to imagine this cloud around us. I mean, for a moment, can you try to imagine all the name, what would you think, hundreds of thousands of high school science teachers in the last century who've stood in front of their classroom and taught the truth. I mean, imagine if we could have their names around us. And that's what this author invites us to do. He kind of invites us to imagine this cloud of witnesses, or as I like to say, kind of a charm bracelet of faith. He has this interesting cosmology and theology where he kind of imagines like a cord that's begun in heaven, and it comes down through the suffering and trials of tribulations and goes back up into heaven, and along that he's got all these little people, all these famous people too, through history and through faith that are with us. For me, it's kind of more something wrapped around me, like the names on my arm of people who I seek to try to follow. And so then the author tells us, he's going to tell us about these people, but first he's going to remind us that faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. And then he's going to break that down for us. And faith, it's such a lovely phrase, the assurance of things hoped for. That word assurance, it means the very being, like your very being, your very core, right, is what you hope for. And earlier in Hebrews, in the first chapter, they had that same word for assurance used for Jesus. It was a way of saying Jesus is the very being. Jesus is, the word is actually imprint. You are the imprint of God. Isn't that a beautiful idea? I mean, like, imagine, like, you wake up in the morning, you're brushing your teeth, you're looking in the mirror, imprint of God, right here, right? It turns out this is what God's got, right? Who else is going to speak up? Who else is going to stop the crazy? Who else is going to stand in front of ice, right? We are the very imprint of God. And not just me, but our family. And not just our family, but when I go on my morning run and I see all these, bleary-eyed college students, kind of the imprint of God. Or the guys who walk down our street every morning. They're leaving the creek where they've been camping, and they're carrying everything they have on their back, the imprint of God. I mean, that's the invitation, is to kind of look deeply and to see. And then the author is going to kind of group these people, not chronologically, it's not from Adam and Eve to here. He's going to start with the people who by faith were righteous. And he throws in like Abel and Noah. Abel is an interesting character because remember, what did Abel do in the Bible? Abel just got killed by his brother Cain. He never speaks, never does anything. And what did Noah do? Like even the rabbis were like, no, he's not very impressive. He got on the ark. He didn't even do anything to try to get his neighbors or anybody else to get on the ark. So they weren't all that impressed. So it's like, you got to love it because all those people did was just show up, right? All they did was just, they're out there on the tennis court playing, and some little kid comes and says, will you go to Doc Robinson's store? And they say yes. All they did was say yes. And then the next group of people are the people who set out on a journey. Abraham and Sarah, they were willing to leave something old and go to something new. They're willing to say, maybe some of these systems we have aren't really working. They left, they went somewhere new, the same way all of our family got here, free, the people who were able to come free. They left Ireland because of the potato famine, or more recently, they left Chiapas because of the drug lords, right? It's like a willingness to go somewhere new. And then the last group of people, by faith, are those who endured, who were chopped in two and imprisoned and flogged and all of it. And it's kind of more like at their very core, they still knew they were the imprint of God. They were free. And I've thought, I know you all have heard me talk about this before, but a couple of years ago, the Amon Carter in Fort Worth had this exhibit about the freedman. It's one of the earliest statues of a black man in this country. In 1863, it was cast, and Amon Carter had the 8 statues. There's 8 of them believed to be, and they had several of them in their possession in the exhibit. And I saw it again, just the one in their collection last month when I was back in Texas. And the one in the Amon Carter is really fascinating because it's the only one that has a key on it and a lock, that the man shackles, of the man who's a fugitive, who's trying to be free. And it was believed to have been commissioned by a woman named Bessie Fremont, who was an abolitionist in Massachusetts. They used the statue. They made took the cannonballs from Fort Wagner, where a lot of black soldiers were killed during the Civil War, and it was dedicated to the 54th Regiment in Massachusetts, the Regiment of Black Soldiers. And John Quincy Adams Ward was the sculptor. And it's such a powerful, powerful piece of work. And the gentleman is like, he's leaning forward, but he's looking. It's like you can feel him like looking back at the cloud of witnesses, right? Looking back. All the people didn't make it across the Middle Passage. All the people who died running for their life. But he's looking off too, like there's something else he can see, something he could not imagine. Even this country with all its freaking setbacks, right? Barack Obama. I mean, right? A different, he's looking at, but then there's also, like in a statue, there's just this very solid core. It's the essence. It's the imprint. This is a free person. It's so different from most of the statues or pictures of the time where you have the statue, you have the slave pleading and Lincoln is standing above them, giving them their freedom. This guy, he's not asking anybody for freedom, right? He is free. It's his very being and his essence. He knows it. And yet, he's not free, right? He's not, he's shackled. The shackle's still on. He's looking. And that is also so key to the author of Hebrews. It's like we all die before we get to the end goal. It's like we die without the promises being kept. It's like you're not going to finish the race. And there's something, I don't understand that part in the author of Hebrews. He's got this, we're connected to the past, but we can't reach the goal because we can't be perfected apart from the people coming after us. I'm like, let's just go ahead and get to a world of joy and justice, and the people in 2040, they can enjoy it, right? Do we really need to wait for it? But it's this weird, like we've all got to be connected to one another. But there's also something so helpful in this, and it's interesting because it's really sort of the core of my faith, which is that we're liberated from the tyranny of results, right? Like we're not expected to be successful. We're just expected to do our part, right? Like there's that great line, you are not required to finish the task any more than you are allowed to set it down, right? You've got to keep doing your part. You've got to keep working for this world of peace and joy and justice, abundance and bounty for everyone. And I remember the very first time I heard that, like that I really understood. I was in seminary class. Dr. Bill Baird was our New Testament professor. And, if you've had a teacher or professor like this, to God be the glory, like who just exuded such care and love and generosity of spirit. And the guy, he was just a little bitty guy, and he, wrote these real huge thick books on the history of New Testament research that no one read, but he just knew everything. And he loved the scripture, and he would stand in front of the class and he would start lecturing, but it was really a sermon. And I remember him standing there, this would have been 1983, saying, "We preach Christ crucified." And I just understood that, Christianity is not a religion about dominating, overpowering, overwhelming. It is a religion about standing with people in the brokenness, right? This is not someone who's victorious. This is Dr. King on a balcony in Memphis. This is a young man, his body hanging limp on a wire in Wyoming, right? This is standing. This is the family in the hospital room holding their child as he breathes his last. It's like we are right there with one another in the brokenness of life, and all we are asked to do is keep going and to keep adding our voice and to keep showing up and to keep believing that if we keep on and keep on and keep on, eventually down the road, something else. John Scopes went back to Dayton, Tennessee in 1960 when that movie Inherit the Wind came out, and according to ACLU attorneys, it's the must-see movie. You've got to go home and watch it. And they invited him to come back. It was the first time he came back, and they made it John Scopes Day, and they gave him the key to the city, and then, he spoke, and then he later on, a year or two later, wrote his memoirs, in which he said confidently, "The day will come when we will no longer be bothered by fundamentalists." Well, dude, I don't know about that, but I'm not betting on it, not in my lifetime, right? The reality is, folks, that minds that have been made narrow by fear and hearts that have been hardened by power and greed do not go away easily. But neither do the people filling our classrooms, right? Neither do the teachers standing there with their arms. Neither do the people in the courtroom saying, "You will not open this place and round people up and put here." Neither do the people serving the meals. Neither do the people marching across the bridge. So today, may we be reminded in these really challenging times of all those who have gone before, and for the simple, beautiful call that we are called to take our place in the pageant. May it be so. Amen.